Imagine wielding the power to control the purse strings of kings and queens, to dictate the economic fate of nations. This is not a recent phenomenon, nor the stuff of modern-day conspiracy theories. For centuries, a group of Venetian bankers secretly held this remarkable influence over medieval Europe. Our story begins in 14th century Venice, an independent republic known as La Serenissima, or the Most Serene. At its heart lies the Rialto, Europe's busiest trading hub, teeming with merchants from across the continent. Amidst this commercial hive, the Venetian bankers quietly spun their web of financial control. These banks were more than just money-lending institutions. They were the lifeblood of commerce and diplomacy. The Medici Bank, founded by Giovanni de' Medici de' Medici in 1397, was one such behemoth. By 1420, it had established branches in Rome, Geneva, Pisa, Venice, Naples, London, and Bruges, a network unmatched in scale and scope. The Banco di San Giorgio, founded in 1407, was another influential player. It served as both the public bank of the Republic of Genoa and a private enterprise, managing state finances while also engaging in lucrative trade deals. These banks didn't merely facilitate transactions, they shaped policies and swayed political decisions. They loaned vast sums to monarchs and popes, using these debts as leverage to manipulate international relations. When King Edward III of England needed funds to wage war against France in the 100 Years' War, it was the Medici Bank that stepped in, effectively deciding the outcome of one of medieval Europe's most protracted conflicts. But how did a city-state like Venice gain such financial clout? The answer lies in its unique position at the crossroads of East and West, its advanced maritime technology, and its robust legal system that protected property rights and contracts, conditions ripe for economic prosperity. As we delve deeper into this labyrinthine tale of power and money, prepare to question everything you thought you knew about financial history. This is the Money Conspiracy. The Medici family, almost unbeknownst to many, rose to become the preeminent banking dynasty in Europe, their influence and power shaping centuries of financial history. The story began in the 14th century when Giovanni de' Medici de' Medici identified a lucrative opportunity in papal banking. By 1397, he had established the Medici Bank in Rome, securing a monopoly on managing the Vatican's finances, and thus laying the foundation for the family's financial empire. The sheer scale of the Medici wealth is staggering. At its peak, the Medici Bank boasted assets worth over 100,000 florins, the equivalent of millions of dollars today. With their vast riches, the Medicis extended their reach beyond Italy, establishing branches in London, Paris, Geneva, and throughout the European trade routes. As the family's power grew, so too did its influence over Europe's most potent institutions. The Medici name became synonymous with papal authority as they controlled popes, bishops, and cardinals. They manipulated the politics of their day, financing wars and alliances to further expand their dominion. Cosimo de' Medici, known as Cosimo the Elder, cemented his family's dynasty by crafting a network of loyalists known as the Medicean constellation. This web of influence extended from the Vatican to Florence and beyond, a testament to the far-reaching impact of Medici wealth. But how did this one family accumulate such immense power? The answer lies in their keen understanding of finance, a relentless pursuit of growth, and a willingness to manipulate the institutions that stood in their way. As we unravel this intricate tapestry of power and money, it becomes clear that the Medici family's legacy is one built on cunning, ambition, and an insatiable thirst for control. Through strategic marriages, political alliances, and a keen sense of market opportunities, the Medicis transformed their banking empire into a dynasty that would dominate European finance for centuries to come. Yet, as we shall see in the next chapter of The Money Conspiracy, such rapid growth often comes with a dangerous cost. In the shadows of power, Venetian bankers wove a web of financial influence that stretched across Europe for centuries. These astute businessmen didn't just deal in gold and silver coins, they traded in something far more valuable: trust. Royal courts and political movements relied heavily on these Italian banking families to fund their ambitions, making them the unseen architects of history. One such family was the Fuggers, who hailed from the German city of Augsburg. Founded in 1367 by a humble weaver named Hans Fugger, this dynasty would grow to become one of the most powerful banking houses in Europe. By the 16th century, they had established branches in Spain, France, and Portugal, financing kings and popes alike. At the height of their power, the Fuggers financed Emperor Charles V's war against France with a loan worth an astounding 2 million guilders, a colossal sum in those days. But it wasn't just about lending money, these bankers also played a pivotal role in shaping policy. Jacob Fugger, known as the Rich, is said to have influenced the election of Emperor Maximilian I, and even had a hand in drawing up the electoral rules for the Holy Roman Empire. The Medici family from Florence is another prime example. They used their banking fortune to manipulate Italian politics, bankrolling popes and controlling the papal court. During the Italian wars, they funneled funds to both France and Spain, effectively playing both sides against each other. This strategic positioning allowed them to maintain influence regardless of who emerged victorious. However, this tangled web of financial interests often led to conflict. When Henry VIII sought to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon in 1533, it wasn't just the Pope he had to contend with. The Medici-backed Spanish monarchy also opposed the move. The ensuing English Reformation not only changed the course of religious history, but marked the beginning of the end for Medici influence over the Vatican. These examples underscore the profound impact Venetian bankers had on European history. Through their control of capital, they shaped political landscapes and steered the course of nations. But as we've seen, such far-reaching power came with its own perils, leading to clashes, collapses, and eventual downfalls. 1694 marked a pivotal year in Europe's financial landscape with the establishment of the Bank of England. But what many don't know is that this institution was heavily influenced by Venetian financiers, who had been discreetly controlling European economies for centuries. The creation of the Bank of England was spurred by a pressing need to fund King William III's war against France. The English government was bankrupt, and traditional lending methods were insufficient. Enter a group of wealthy Venetian bankers led by Giovanni Francesco Segreto. They proposed a novel concept, a central bank that could issue public debt as bonds, effectively transforming the nation into a creditworthy borrower. In return for their expertise, these Venetians secured influential positions within the new banking system. Interestingly, one of the first governors of the Bank of England was Sir Gilbert Heathcote, whose family had close ties to Venice through trade. This set a precedent for future involvement of Venetian-descended families in British finance. The injection of Venetian financial acumen into the Bank of England significantly strengthened its operations. The bank could now manage national debt, regulate interest rates, and control currency exchange rates, tools that would enable Britain to become a global superpower. However, this integration wasn't without controversy. Critics argued that such power should remain solely in British hands. There were even accusations of espionage and secret dealings between the Venetian financiers and the Vatican, which added fuel to the fire of anti-Catholic sentiment in England. Despite these objections, the influence of Venetian bankers persisted. Their model became the foundation for modern central banking, shaping economic policies worldwide. Yet, as we've seen throughout history, such profound power often sows seeds of distrust and resistance, leading to clashes and eventual downfalls. As we move forward in our investigation, it becomes increasingly clear how deeply entwined Venetian financiers were with the evolution of European banking. Their influence extends beyond Italy's borders, leaving an indelible mark on the financial institutions we know today. The Venetian banking dynasties didn't just control the flow of money in their own city-state, they also shaped the financial systems we know today. One such family, the Medici, established a bank in Florence during the late Middle Ages that would become Europe's most powerful financial institution by the 15th century. The Medici Bank served as an early prototype for modern commercial banks, offering services like loans, deposits, and currency exchange, all built on the Venetian model of double-entry bookkeeping. But perhaps their most lasting impact came from their lending practices to kings and popes across Europe. These high-interest loans allowed monarchs to fund wars, construction projects, and other costly endeavors without relying solely on tax revenues. In turn, these rulers granted the Medici family vast tracts of land, lucrative trade rights, and political influence, effectively privatizing parts of sovereign states for personal gain. Fast forward to the 17th century when another Venetian banking dynasty, the Fuggers, played a pivotal role in inventing modern bonds. To raise funds for the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V's war efforts, the Fuggers issued public bonds, essentially selling shares of the empire's debt to investors. This innovation allowed governments to borrow larger sums over longer periods, transforming the way nations financed their operations. These historical precedents set the stage for the rise of central banks and the modern financial system. Today, commercial banks operate under similar principles as the Medici Bank, while government bonds remain a staple of public finance. Even the concept of too big to fail can be traced back to Venetian bankers, who were often deemed indispensable to both their clients and competitors. Yet, this legacy also brings forth uncomfortable questions about power dynamics between financiers and political leaders, as well as the ethics of profit-driven financial systems. As we continue to unravel the influence of these Venetian bankers, it becomes clearer how deeply entrenched their practices are in our contemporary world, shaping not only our wallets but also our values and beliefs about wealth, power, and governance. Delving deeper into our investigation, we encounter the formidable Venetian bankers who, for centuries, covertly shaped global trade and commerce. These financiers developed sophisticated systems of credit, double-entry bookkeeping, and complex financial instruments like the bill of exchange, all critical innovations that fueled the rise of modern capitalism. One such institution was Banca di San Giorgio, established in 1401, which would become Europe's longest-lived bank until its closure in 1805. This bank served as a crucial link between Asian markets and Western economies, allowing Venetian merchants to extend their commercial reach far beyond the Mediterranean. The Medici family, another prominent Venetian banking dynasty, played an equally significant role in this financial revolution. By the 15th century, they had established themselves as papal bankers, controlling vast sums of money across Europe. At its peak, the Medici Bank handled over 500,000 gold florins, equivalent to billions of dollars today. These banking houses weren't just moving money, they were actively shaping international trade policies and geopolitical strategies. In fact, some historians argue that it was the Venetian bankers who facilitated Spain's colonization of the Americas by financing Christopher Columbus's voyages in 1492 and 1493, effectively laying the groundwork for European imperialism. But how did these banks maintain their power? One key factor was their ability to manipulate interest rates through usury, a practice then considered sinful by the Catholic Church. Despite religious prohibitions, Venetian bankers found ways to circumvent these rules, thus maintaining control over lending and borrowing, effectively controlling economies. Yet, as we'll explore later, this unchecked power came with consequences. From economic crises to social upheaval, the actions of these powerful banking families reverberated throughout history, raising questions about the dangers of concentrated wealth and unregulated financial systems, issues still relevant in today's world. Remember, while these revelations might seem shocking, they represent just one facet of the Venetian bankers' extensive influence. As we journey further down this rabbit hole, brace yourself for more uncomfortable truths about the intricate relationship between finance and power. The Venetian banking empire didn't just dominate trade and politics, it also wove a far-reaching web into the heart of Christendom, the Vatican. The Church, with its immense wealth and power, was an irresistible target for these financial sharks. One name stands out among this clandestine saga: Tommaso Portinari. A scion of a prominent Venetian banking family, he became the manager of the Medici Bank's branch in Bruges, Belgium in 1465. But his real claim to infamy lies elsewhere. Portinari cultivated close ties with Pope Sixtus IV, who reigned from 1471 to 1484. During this time, the Venetian banker extended generous loans to the Vatican, totaling over 200,000 florins, a staggering sum in those days. These funds financed everything from papal elections to wars against infidels. But here's where things get murky. There are strong indications that these loans were never intended to be repaid. Instead, they served as a tool for the Venetian banking dynasties to exert control over the Holy See. After all, debt is one of the most potent weapons to wield power over someone. This influence extended beyond finances into doctrinal matters. In 1478, Pope Sixtus approved the establishment of the Archdiocese of Columbus in Spain, which directly benefited Venetian trading interests. This move sparked controversy within the church and led to accusations of simony, selling sacred offices for money or other favors. Meanwhile, Portinari's own fortunes took a turn for the worse when he made risky loans to English nobles who later defaulted. By 1494, the Medici Bank was bankrupt, dragging down Portinari with it. Yet, despite his downfall, his legacy lived on, symbolizing the deep reach of Venetian banking into religious institutions. This tale is but a single thread in the vast tapestry of Venice's financial dominance. And as we delve deeper, prepare to encounter more shocking revelations about how money and power intertwined in past centuries, connections that continue to shape our world today. The tale of Pope Clement VII is emblematic of a much broader phenomenon, one that reaches far beyond the Vatican's walls. It's the story of Venice, a city-state whose banking institutions became the preeminent financial powers in Renaissance Europe. This influence didn't vanish with the fall of the Venetian Republic. Instead, it metastasized, seeping into the very fabric of contemporary finance and politics. Let's take a step back to examine the Banco di San Giorgio, established in 1408. This public bank served as the treasury for not only Venice, but also its colonies and client states. By the 16th century, it had amassed such wealth that it could manipulate currencies, dictate interest rates, and even fund wars across the continent. Fast forward to modern Italy, where we see remnants of this legacy today. Take Milan's Banca Commerciale Italiana, for instance, which was founded in 1894 by a group of Venetian bankers. They aimed to create an institution that would rival those in London and Paris, a goal they achieved through strategic partnerships with other European banks. Today, BCI operates as part of the sprawling multinational conglomerate Intesa Sanpaolo, boasting assets worth over $1 trillion. But it's not just about banks. This influence extends to political institutions too. Consider Silvio Berlusconi, Italy's longest-serving prime minister since World War II. His media empire, Fininvest, has deep roots in Venice. In fact, his rise to power can be traced back to the late 1970s when he acquired Arnoldo Mondadori Editore, Italy's largest publishing house. With this acquisition, Berlusconi gained control over much of Italy's press, a move that arguably paved the way for his political ascendancy. And so, we return to our initial question: what happened to the Venetian bankers who secretly controlled Europe for centuries? They didn't disappear. Instead, they evolved, adapting their methods to maintain their stronghold on power. Their influence persists in financial capitals around the world, subtly shaping global economics and geopolitics. As we unravel this intricate web of money and power, remember, history doesn't always unfold as a straightforward narrative. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, whispering from the shadows of institutions we take for granted. And sometimes that history is still being written, right under our noses.